What is up, guys? TopTierYugioh here, and today we've got some plundering to do, boys. This is going to be a Plunder Patrol deck profile. Alright, so I'm going to try to keep this profile relatively short, but at the same time I do want to go in depth because when I first started playing Plunders, I had a lot of difficulty learning how to play the deck, but I'm hoping this video can be helpful for a lot of you guys, and I'm really going to try to discuss all of the things that I wish I knew when I first started playing Plunders. And so hopefully you guys enjoy it, hopefully it's useful, and if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe because I do try to upload brand new in-depth deck profiles at least once a week. And so if you like that, feel free to subscribe so that you'll be notified when the new videos come up every week. And then like this video if you like it. I'd really appreciate it, but let's go ahead and get into this profile. And so I actually want to start with the Plunder Patrol ships. And so for these we have 3 copies of List, 2 copies of Bran, and then 2 copies of Mowork. And so all of these have quick effects to where you can discard a Plunder Patrol card and then do something a little bit differently. And so for List, you discard a Plunder card when your opponent activates a monster effect, and then you negate that monster effect and destroy it. For Bran, you can target a spell or trap card on your opponent's side of the field, banish it. And then for Mowork, you can banish an effect monster your opponent controls. And all of them also will search a Plunder card. And so List can search any Plunder Patrol card. Bran, which banishes spell and traps, searches a monster. Mowork, which banishes a monster, searches a spell or trap. So Bran and Mowork are both opposites. And so they all have other effects as well. Like these Plunder Patrol ships are literally insane. They have multiple effects and all of them are good. And so for List, it has another quick effect to where you can special summon a Plunder monster from your hand or face-up spell and trap card zone, which is going to help you swarm the field. Bran gives all of your monsters, all of your other fiend monsters, 500 extra attack. And then Mowork protects your monsters with like a Dingirsu effect. And so when one of your Plunder cards would be destroyed, then you can detach material instead. And so again, all of these Plunder Patrol ships are absolutely insane. They're the boss monsters of the deck, and we try to get into them as fast as possible. And we have multiple ways of doing so. We can summon them via their respective mechanics like fusion summoning, synchro summoning, and Xyz summoning, but we also have effects that allow us to special summon from the extra deck and equip something to them, thus optimizing their effects. And for that we have 3 copies of Blackbeard, 3 copies of Whitebeard, and 3 copies of Redbeard. All of these have the effect that you can quick effect, special summon a Plunder monster from your extra deck with the same attribute as a monster your opponent controls or is in their graveyard, and then equip this card to it. And so all of them let you do that. Blackbeard is a little bit better because it is a link to, so you can do it on either player's turn, and you can equip any monster you control to it. But regardless, you're going to be summoning your Plunder Patrol ships and then equipping stuff to them to maximize their effects. That's pretty much what you try to do on your turn 1s. You try to get out your Blackbeard, you turbo into that, or your Whitebeard or your Redbeard, and that's going to give you access to the rest of your extra deck, into your patrol ships, and then those allow you to interact with your opponent. And then if they stay on board, then they're going to allow you to go for game as well, because again, Bran is going to be boosting your monsters up. If you have List on your side of the board to protect yourself from hand traps, you're really able to like extend into whatever you want. Your opponent can't stop you if you have a List on board, so that's really cool. And then Mowork is just breaking down boards, protecting you. Just an insane card. And so you're really trying to get into these bearded bros that get you into your ships, and then that's how you play the game pretty much. And now, both Whitebeard and Redbeard both have secondary effects that trigger when sent from the hand or monster zone to the graveyard. And for Whitebeard, you're special summoning a Plunder from your deck, and for Redbeard, you're equipping Redbeard to one of your Plunder monsters. So this can also be very valuable for, again, cutting on your patrol ships. And now the final bearded bro we play is 1 copy of Bluebeard, and Bluebeard also has multiple effects. The first is if you control a Plunder Patrol monster except itself, special summon it from the hand. The second effect is that when sent from the hand or monster zone to the graveyard, discard 1 card and then draw 1 card. And so this just helps you filter through your hand and then get to whatever you need to get to. Like it helps you get into your, like let's say you need a Plunder monster for one of your ship's effects. This can maybe help you cycle into one. Or maybe you need a hand trap because you have no other defense. Again, this can help you cycle into it. And so this can be a very useful effect on top of the swarming first effect, which is going to help you go into your Blackbeard. And so something that will happen pretty often is like you can summon Whitebeard, special summon Bluebeard, link both of those into a Blackbeard, and then that's going to trigger both Whitebeard and Bluebeard's effect. And you can put those chains, you can chain those effects in any order if you want to chain block something. So let's say you want to protect your Whitebeard, you can go chain link 1 Whitebeard, chain link 2 Bluebeard, and sure they might be able to Ash the Bluebeard, your Whitebeard is going to go through, and you can maybe summon a Redbeard, and then you can end on Blackbeard and Redbeard. So you're going to get to summon 2 of your ships, and you're going to have like 2 different ways to interact with your opponents, and that can be very, very powerful. And if Bluebeard resolves, you're also going to be able to draw another card. And so that can be very good too, maybe getting you into another Plunder card to discard for your ship's effects. And so Bluebeard's definitely a very good card. And the final Plunder Patrol monster we play is the newest Plunder Patrol monster. It's Golden Hair. And so Golden Hair, like all the others, has multiple ridiculous effects. The first of which being you can send one other Plunder Patrol monster from your hand or field to the graveyard and to special summon it from the hand. The second effect is that if it's in the graveyard, you can discard 1 card and then special summon it. But it locks you in the Plunders. Also, it's once per turn. But that's it. It's not like once per duel or anything. It doesn't banish itself when it leaves the field. No other restrictions. And so once you get this first Golden Hair in the graveyard, you're able to keep bringing it back every single turn for more advantage, which is absolutely incredible. And then also, you just have so many different ways of summoning it too. You can summon it off of a Whitebeard. You can special summon it from your hand. You can normal summon it from your hand. You can special it from the graveyard. You can pretty much get this from anywhere, and it's just such an incredible card, again, for its recursion abilities and for the fact that it's a tuner and a level 4 just like all your other monsters. Well, Whitebeard's a tuner too, but that means that you have easy access to your brands, your Moworks, your Blackbeards, well, you can fuse within the list, but you can pretty much go into whatever you want with Golden Hair. So she is an amazing new addition to the archetype, to the crew. And so with Golden Hair being so valuable in the graveyard, we do play Gen X Undyne to turbo it into the graveyard. And of course 1 copy of Gen X Controller. And so for this slot, it was really between Undyne and Mathematician for me. Both of them serve the same purpose of dumping Golden Hair so that you can revive Golden Hair, then use that to go into a Blackbeard. Because Blackbeard only requires 1 Plunder monster. So you can use like Undyne plus Golden Hair. Very easy. And so it was between this or Mathematician. The difference between those is that Undyne sends as a cost, Mathematician sends as the effect. And so Mathematician is far more vulnerable to cards like Imperm, Ash, Veiler, and other types of negation, which are in every single deck right now. And so I am not a huge fan of Mathematician right now. But Undyne sends as a cost, and so even if they try to negate it, they're just going to be stopping you from searching Controller, which is literally fine. And so I definitely like Undyne a little bit more. And now on one hand, you do have to play Controller, which is sometimes a brick, yes. But on the other hand, it gives you a card that you can definitely discard for Golden Hair if there was nothing else in your hand that you'd rather discard instead. And so it gives you an immediate discard for Golden Hair, making it literally free, unlike with Mathematician where you'd have to discard another card. But the other thing that comes up with Controller specifically is that it is a dark attribute. And that is actually important for this deck, and we're going to get into exactly why later because it's actually pretty useful. Now, another card that I was thinking for this spot is one called Silent Angler. And Silent Angler is a level 4 water monster with the effect that if you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, you cannot special summon other monsters from your hand for the rest of the turn. But the value in this card is very similar to that of Mathematician and Undyne, and that is going to help you turbo into Blackbeard. And so, again, with Undyne and Mathematician, you're dumping Golden Hair, and then using Golden Hair plus whatever you dumped it with to go into Blackbeard. But with Silent Angler, you're normal summoning any of your Plunder monsters, special summoning Angler, and then just linking both of those into a Blackbeard. And so it kind of does the same exact thing. But the difference is that Undyne and Mathematician are good on their own, even without anything else, whereas Angler depends on you having another water monster. And so, on one hand, I can see the pros and cons, but I do actually like Silent Angler for another reason. So, with Undyne, it's only really good in the early stages of the game because, like I mentioned before, once you get that first Golden Hair in the grave, you've got it forever. That means that this card is not very good in the mid and late game. So if you draw it, not only is it dead because you don't have Controller, but also, even if you didn't have Controller, you would not really be able to do much with it. Like, you would just be adding extra copies of Golden Hair, which don't do anything. Whereas with Silent Angler, this is going to be good at all stages of the game, especially mid to late game, to where you can revive a Golden Hair, special summon Angler, and then have immediate access into your brands or your Moworks. And so Angler is actually better mid to late game. But with Yu-Gi-Oh being as fast as it is now, I felt that it would be better to prioritize the card that's good in the early game, like the Undyne. But let me know what you think about that, because I do think that there is a place for Angler in this deck, because it is very valuable for sure. But Nonetheless, that's pretty much it for the monsters. Let's go ahead and move into the spell cards, and for those we play first, one copy of Plunder Patrol Shipyard. And so Shipyard follows the trend of TCG exclusive field spells being absolutely ridiculous, and so it has multiple effects. The first one being that all of your Plunder monsters gain 500 for each Plunder card in your spell and trap card zone. Note that field spells are not in your spell and trap card zone, they are in the field spell zone, and so it does not count for itself. But still, that boost comes up a lot and helps you put game on board a ton. Like, you can gain so much extra attack just having a few things in your spell and trap card zone, especially in combination with Brand, which is already giving all of your other monsters 500 attack too. You have Emblem giving them 500 attack. You're easily getting your ships up to like 3,500, 4,000 attack. And so it's just absolutely ridiculous. The next effect is that you can discard one card, add a Plunder card from your deck to your hand, except for itself. Third effect is that if it's in the graveyard, you can target a Plunder card in your spell and trap card zone, set this card, and then if you do, return the target to your hand. And so obviously the second searching effect is ridiculous. You can search any Plunder Patrol card, not only monsters, you can search spells, traps, whatever. But then the graveyard effect is also really good and really synergizes as well, because let's say you have like a Redbeard equipped. Something I like to do is I'll have a Redbeard equipped to something, then I'll activate Shipyard's effect, add the Redbeard back to my hand, set the Shipyard, activate it, and then use Shipyard, discarding the Redbeard to search, and then I'll use Redbeard to just equip itself right back. And so you're essentially getting a free search out of that. And so that's really useful. And also note that it does not banish itself when it leaves the field, like similarly to Golden Hair, like a lot of other cards would when they have a similar effect. And so that's really good. You can actually kind of cycle your shipyards like that as well, which is neat. And obviously you can do similar things with like Whitebeard, Bluebeard, etc., Golden Hair. You can bounce them back to your hand, discard them and get them back in the grave and trigger their effects, or in Golden Hair's case, pretty much just get it back in the grave to set up its effect again. And so you can, like, let's say you have a Shipyard and Graveyard and a Golden Hair equipped to something. You bounce the Golden Hair, then you can Shipyard, activate it, discard Golden Hair, search something that might be good to discard off of Golden Hair. Like you can search like a Whitebeard maybe, then discard the Whitebeard, bring back Golden Hair, and use Whitebeard's effect to summon something else. And then just get into more plays. Like, it just really sets up so many different cool plays with all of the effects combined together. Just an absolutely incredible card. Next, we have 2 copies of Emblem of the Plunder Patrol, which is an equip spell, where it gives the monster it's equipped to 500 attack. Also, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. But the cool part of the effect is that, well, I mean, this part's cool too, but the cooler part of the effect is that you can send this equipped card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Plunder Patrol monster from your extra deck with the same attribute as a monster on the field or in the graveyard, and then take the monster that this card was equipped to, equip it to that monster, and it gains 500 attack. So note that this does not only depend on the opponent's graveyard, it just looks at the graveyard. And so that's what I was saying earlier when Gen X Controller's attribute actually matters. With it being dark attribute, once you get it into the graveyard, if you can use Emblem, that's going to give you access to a Moark because Moark is also dark. And so being able to use your own attributes can be huge because you might use your Ash Blossoms or your Effect Veilers, and that's going to give you access to like fires, lights, etc. Hand traps are such a huge source of attributes, by the way. I mean, obviously Ash is fire, Infernal Knights are all fire, but then for lights you have Veiler, Nibiru, Gamma, Ogre, all being light. For dark you have DD Crow and Phantasme. There are just so many good generic cards that fit the attributes that you want. Next, we have 2 copies of Plunder Patrol Shipping. This is the fusion spell, and so it has multiple effects, the first being a generic fusion spell effect. The second effect is that you can banish it from the graveyard and then target 1 Plunder Patrol monster you control, equip 1 emblem of the Plunder Patrol, or any Plunder Patrol monster from your deck to that target. Then you can only use this effect once per turn. And so that is absolutely incredible to get that amount of synergy out of a single card. So one, you obviously can fusion summon for your list, which is insane by itself, but also once it's in the graveyard, it gives you access to Emblem, which can give you access to anything else in your extra deck, or it can equip any of your other monsters, which, let's say you didn't have a Golden Hair, now you can. Or if you wanted to use Shipyard's graveyard effect and bounce any of them to your hand, you could do that. There's so many cool plays that you can make with shipping. I think it's easily a 2 of. I think you got to play it for sure. Even if you don't plan on fusion summoning a lot, because it is kind of difficult to do so, because you need shipping in your hand, but then you also need 2 other plunders. That's already using 3 of your cards to go into just one, your one fusion. And sure, you're going to be getting graveyard effects from probably any plunder monster you use. It's still a lot of resources to go into one fusion monster. But even outside of that, just using that graveyard effect is absolutely incredible. Discarding it for like a shipyard or a golden hair or something is really, really powerful. And so that's why I like 2 copies of shipping. Also, both of these are searchable off of Shipyard, and so whenever you need to see them, you got access to it. And now the final Plunder Patrol spell and trap we play are 3 copies of Plunder Patrol Booty. And as I always say, booty is life, booty is everything. And so Booty does literally everything you would want a continuous trap to do in this archetype. You can declare one attribute, and then target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and it becomes that attribute until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. Then you can take one Plunder Patrol monster from your graveyard, shuffle it into your deck, or special summon it. You can only use this once per turn, and then in the end phase, if you control no Plunder monsters, send it to the graveyard. And so for that first effect, it's absolutely incredible to be able to control your opponent's attributes, because that means your Whitebeards, Redbeards, and Blackbeards all now can give you access to whatever extra deck monster that you want in whatever situation. And so that can be incredibly powerful. But also the second effect adds efficiency to the archetype, allowing you to recycle your resources and even summon back your patrol ships. But you do have to be careful though, because you cannot special summon an extra deck monster from the graveyard that was not properly summoned first. And so you do want to consider that when using Booty, and you want to be sure to hard summon a lot of your monsters too. Like you want to Xyz summon, Synchro summon, and Fusion summon some of these patrol ships as well, so that you can revive them off of Booty, because it's really powerful mid to late game, to where you might have like Whitebeard plus Booty, right? And then on your opponent's turn, you use Booty, turn your opponent's monster into a light attribute, let's say for example. Then you use Whitebeard, and you go into list, and then Booty can like revive a brand, and then you have monster negation and monster banishing, both quick effects. Like that would be absolutely incredible. And so just being able to set up your graveyard to where you're able to bring these back, as well as use your bearded effects in order to get into them as well, you can really set up these really difficult boards for your opponents to deal with. And so I definitely think Booty is a 3-up for sure. But that's pretty much it for the Plunder Patrol archetype. Next we have the hand traps, where I'm playing 3 copies of Imperm, 3 copies of Ash, 2 copies of Veiler. I've been going kind of back and forth on the 3rd Imperm versus the 3rd Veiler, because on one hand, Imperm is so flexible, so powerful. Your opponent can't really play around it with Guardian. It's difficult to negate with Called by the Grave, doesn't play into triple tactical talents. It's just a very good hand trap for sure. But the downside is that if you draw it off of Blackbeard, it's going to be dead, whereas Veiler is a card that you can draw off of Blackbeard and be able to use. Also, Veiler is a light attribute, which gives you access to lists through Emblem, whereas Imperm obviously does not have an attribute, and so it doesn't give you access through Emblem. And so that's why on one hand, I think Veiler is like blatantly better, but Veiler might be better for this deck. And so I'm kind of back and forth on which one to play at 3 versus which to play at 2. So that's it for the hand traps though. Then finally we have 3 copies of Pot of Desires and 3 copies of Triple Tactical Talents. And for this deck, I think it's just so important to actually get into your Plunder monsters. Like, you just want to see Plunder cards. You want to see Plunder cards and hand traps, because your Plunder monsters are going to get you into your ships, which do literally everything, and your hand traps are just extra defense on top of that. Like, nothing else really matters. It's just, these ships are so good, you want to turbo into them, and so I want to play as many cards as possible to get me into the Plunder engine. And so with Desires, there's really no concern of banishing anything within the deck. Maybe the Controller, but you really don't need Controller specifically to play. Like, you're fine without it. Or you can just play Undyne first, and after that Undyne resolves, you're good. And even if the Undyne doesn't resolve, and you, like, say your Undyne gets ashed, and so Controller stays in the deck, well, you've got Golden Hair in the grave, and so you still don't care about Controller anymore. And so I think 3 copies of Desires is definitely mandatory, and 2 copies of Triple Tactical Talents for a similar reason. You want to be able to draw into your engine, and so if your opponent tries to hand trap you, punish them. Draw 2 more cards. Or if you're going second, your opponent tries to negate something, punish him, draw some more cards, and then extend through that. But something I do want to mention about Tactical Talents is that you have to be careful with the other 2 effects, the effects that allow you to take control of monsters or look at their hand, because the cards that your opponents have is kind of a resource for you. Like the attributes of the monster that your opponent gives you access to is very important. And so when you're taking control of an opponent's monster, now they no longer control that attribute, which means that's something that you might not be able to go into. So let's say you take your opponent's Herald. Now you might not have access to lists, or you take their Borreload Savage Dragon, you might not have access to Darks now. And so you kind of have to be careful with that. And the same with the hand effect, where maybe you take away your opponent's Ash Blossom, you might have needed fire to go into a Brand, or you take away their Veiler, their Ogre, their Nib, their Gamma. Now you might not have a light monster to go into your list. And so you have to be careful with the second two effects, because they definitely affect your ability to go into your extra deck monsters. And so you have to be careful. It's still a very powerful card, but just keep that in mind for sure. But that's pretty much it for the main deck. For the extra deck, I think I've already mentioned the 3 copies of Blackbeard, 3 copies of List, 2 Brand, 2 Mowork. Next we have 1 copy of Almirage, which is very powerful because with Golden Hair, it's a 1 card Blackbeard. And so the way it works is that you'll normal summon Golden Hair, then use Golden Hair to go into Almirage, then use Golden Hair's effect, summon itself back, and then link the Golden Hair and the Almirage into a Blackbeard. And so it's a 1 card Blackbeard, very, very useful combo. And then these final 4 spots are kind of flex spots. And so for this, I'm going with 1 Bahamut Shark, 1 Toad, 1 Dragite, and then 1 White Aura Whale. I think Bahamut Shark and Toad are very useful in the mid game to really kind of like lock up games, to where it's like maybe it can go either way, but you put a Toad on board and then like a Blackbeard and the game is over. Like your opponent's not getting through a negate and through your engine itself too, especially if you have like a booty up as well. That can be very difficult. But the other cool thing about Toad, I think, is when you're playing against Dogmaticas and they activate Maximus and try to dump stuff to the grave, you can dump Toad and just add itself back, or you can add some of your Plunders back and really just recycle some resources that way. So that's a good thing about Toad. Another card I was considering was Omega for similar reasons, because, I mean, one, you can just make it, and it never feels like the correct play to make to just hard summon Omega in this deck, but you can. But if your opponent dumps it with a Maximus, you can use it to just shuffle things back and then keep playing. But I didn't think there was enough space for that. It was just too one-dimensional in my opinion, because you're just not hard summoning it in this deck. But I would if you don't feel like buying Toad, I personally wouldn't buy Toad right now. It's like kind of overvalued for the deck, at least. There are definitely other options that you could replace it with. Another option that I also commonly see that's also expensive, so like if you're trying to save money, I wouldn't recommend this either, but something that I do see is a Needle Fiber Selene and Axis Code Talker combo. And it's possible because we do play a lot of tuners, like Golden Hair and Whitebeard are both tuners. Very easy to get into a Needle Fiber, summon a Veiler, Selene. We play a lot of spells, provide the Veiler, go Axis Code, and OTK. That's an option as well, but I don't think it's necessarily necessary in this deck, because it's very easy to OTK anyways with just your Shipyard, your Brand, and then summoning a bunch of Plunder monsters. So we don't really need Access Code combo to OTK, and so because of that, I don't think it's worth the money to put it in. I mean, unless you already have it, but even then, is it worth the 3 spots in your extra deck? I'm not so sure. 2 cards I do actually really like are Dragite and White Aura Whale. And so for Dragite, it gives you access to Spell Trap Negation, which this deck normally can't do. And sure, we have the ability to banish Spell and Traps, we don't have the ability to outright negate them. And so Dragite allows us to do that while also having a 3000 attack, 2200 defense body, which is pretty cool. Now, the other neat effect about Dragite is we can still activate the first effect to excavate the top 5 and then maybe bounce stuff to the opponent's hand. And while we don't play any rocks, the opponent doesn't know that. In a lot of cases, it kind of allows you to bait into your opponent's disruptions for no reason. And that could be kind of cool, actually. And so Dragite's a pretty neat addition. You get Spell Trap Negation. And then we have 1 copy of White Aura Whale, which, when synchro summoned, you can destroy all your opponent's attack position monsters. And so it's a board wipe that can also attack twice per battle phase, pierces, and then if it's destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish a water monster from your graveyard and revive it. And so it's very difficult for a lot of decks to deal with, forces them to use like unconventional outs to it, but a lot of time at that case, especially after resolving that first effect, it's going to be difficult. And so it's a very powerful card in the mid to late game. And again, especially with Golden Hair bringing itself back every single turn, it's very easy to make these like extra synchro monsters and Xyz monsters or whatever. So you have a lot of space. Another option would be Dweller. Dweller can be good against a lot of different matchups, and it was going to give all of your monsters a boost as well. And so you can end up with Dweller boost, Shipyard boost, Brand boost, and just be attacking over all your opponent's stuff. Really insane. So finally, let's get into the side deck, and for that, first I'm playing one copy of Pride of the Plunder Patrol, which I'm not so sure if I'll keep this here. I honestly just wanted to play it for the memes, just for the, I don't know, I just kind of like this card. It has such a neat little effect, to where if you attack over an opponent's monster, you can draw a card, whatever. But the cool part is that if you control a Plunder, you can send this face-up card from the field to the grave to activate one of the following effects. Your opponent draws a card, look at their hand, and send one monster from it to the graveyard, or look at your opponent's extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. So it's kind of like an in-themed Appointer of the Red Lotus, and I think that's absolutely incredible because in a lot of decks, there's maybe one card that starts all of their plays, and if you can get rid of it, you just stop their whole turn. Like, if you're playing against a Jet Synchron deck, you can get rid of their Jet Synchron, and that's pretty much it. And while Jet Synchron has a graveyard effect, I mean, it puts a fire in your grave that you can use to summon Brand, which might allow you to disrupt them even further. Let's see, or if you're using the secondary effect, if you're playing against a combo deck, you can just get rid of their combo pieces, like get rid of their Needle Fiber, get rid of their Auroradon, their Isolde, their Linkross, and all of those are going to be good attributes for you. Like, you can get rid of, you can dump their Linkross to the graveyard, and now you have a light. Or you can dump their Herald, or their Savage Dragon, maybe in Savage Dragon's Dark. And so there's so many cool things that you can do with Pride that it really makes me want to play it. And also it's searchable. You can just search it off a Shipyard, so it's super easy to get into, very powerful effect, also gives you information on your opponent, sets up your graveyard, or their graveyard for you to use in the attributes. Overall, just an insane card, I think, that is neat to have in the side deck. One copy of Metaverse, one Mystic Mine. Metaverse gives you a lot of utility because you can just activate Mine defensively to stop your opponent from attacks, negate their effects, but you can also use it to add a Shipyard to your hand, and then use Shipyard to discard for your Plunder effects. Then getting Shipyard in the grave also it also allows you to do a lot of other neat things, like I mentioned earlier, bouncing back your bearded cards and then using them again. Just really neat interactions you can do with Metaverse. 3 copies of Evenly for going second, 3 copies of Gizmek Uka, because you can use that to just summon out the Water Barrier statue, which doesn't affect you at all because this entire archetype is water. Well, except for your ships. That's kind of the downside, but you can go into Blackbeard at least. But we can definitely play through this better than other decks can, but we also can use Uka to summon out Redbeard because Redbeard has the same attack and defense, so that's a pretty neat interaction. So we can either go into Statue and then lock the opponent out of the game, or we can go into Redbeard and then summon the appropriate Plunder Patrol ship. So that has really cool utility. Gamma because it's insane. And if you guys saw the Dogmatica Synchro Eldritch deck profile, to where I was talking about hand traps and how to play through them, then you saw that Gamma is literally the hardest hand trap to play through. Like, Imperm, Ash, Veiler, sure they negate effects, but they leave monsters on board, so all it takes is an extender to continue. Or in the Biru, sure it wipes their board, but it gives them a token, so all they need is an extender to continue. But with Gamma, you're negating the effect and removing the monster, forcing them to need more than just a single extender in order to continue playing. And so Gamma is an absolutely incredible card that the only reason it isn't in the main deck is because it's not really good going first, because by the time you use your effects, you generally have monsters on board, so you're not going to be able to use it. But then also, it's not very good to draw off of Blackbeard when compared to like Ash or Veiler. And like I mentioned before with Imperm, that's a downside for that too. And so it's really only good going second, and so I felt that it's better just in the side. And then one Pankratops. And so that's pretty much it for this deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys found it useful and helpful. Maybe if you guys like this video enough, I'll maybe do some duels or test hands or something like that to really show more about how this deck plays, because I do really enjoy it. And I think a lot of people should try it out because I know the perception that Plunders have. Like, I definitely at first thought they would be hot garbage. I did not think they would be a good archetype at all, especially like having to deal with your opponent, like being able to, or having to depend on your opponent to give you the right attributes really felt so gimmicky and so just bad at first. But once I started playing the deck and realizing that you can kind of manipulate that and the way you can kind of play around things and how easy it is in different matchups to set up win conditions, I found it to be very rewarding and fun. Not to mention that there are some things this deck can do that others just can't deal with. Like, you equip a Brawn with an emblem, it's at 3000 attack, can't be targeted, and then you're banishing spell and traps. do that against Eldritch and see how much difficulty they have dealing with it. You're probably gonna win that game. Or playing against most other combo decks, setting up a Mort can be huge. Because, I mean, quick effect banishing monsters is, like, Karma Cut's insane. And then List, like, all of these cards are just so good that despite the gimmicks, it's solid. It's definitely solid, and it's cheap, too. I think at the time of this recording, Whitebeard's like 10, Redbeard's, I think, 7 or 8, something like that. And so this is going to be about 60 bucks. And then these are like $1 or $2 each. So maybe you get the whole deck for about like $80 US, I think, which is not bad. It's definitely pretty budget compared to everything else. You don't need the tactical talents. It's just nice. Desires has been reprinted a bunch of times. Hand Traps have been reprinted. Imperm is still expensive, but you could swap this out for like Veilers, Ogres, other cheaper Hand Traps for sure, and it will be fine. Let's see, what else is expensive here? You don't really need Evenlies. You don't need any of these specifically. So you could definitely swap these out for more budget options and make this deck truly like a very good budget deck. So I think that's actually one really good appeal of Plunder Patrols that a lot of people should pay more attention to. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.